Hey, beautiful people, what's up? It's me, Sonita, back with another video, and today, sound effects. We have a very special guest. She is brilliant. She's beautiful, a style icon, if you will. Super athletic, an amazing dancer, just an all-around dope person who also happens to be a Fulbright Fellow, a University of Michigan Ph.D. student, lots of accolades now and to come in the future. And her name is Chi.
Hey.
How did I do?
Yes. Thank you for all the love. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for joining me again. I know you're super busy. You're always doing something, so I appreciate you taking the time to come and chat with me today.
Yes, I'm glad to be here.
All right, so honestly, I reached out to Chi a while ago, but I reached out to her because Chi has this unique way of doing her PhD. You see, while I was in my PhD program, I was toiling. I was suffering from depression and anxiety. I was stressed out constantly. I didn't go out that much. I rarely went to dance clubs, maybe once or twice a year for specific holidays. But Chi, on the other hand, she'd be preparing her dances in advance on Instagram. She'd be putting on her makeup and getting ready to go out and then heading back from the lab. This girl is so social. She's so active. She's so busy. But honestly, she makes doing a PhD, which is a miserable experience for many people, look like a hell of a lot of fun. You look like you have the most fun, ma'am.
Yeah, it is it is out of necessity. And I will say, just because it might look easy on the socials, it certainly is not. It's a lot of work, it's challenging, and it's something that, I think my personality and who I am, how I grew up. My mom used to tell me when I was younger, she'd have to chase me down to get me to sit still. So I think that has just translated in all areas of my life. But yeah, it's who I am. So I have to find a way to make it work.
Yes, you're always making moves academically and socially. So let's start at the beginning. We're going to get more into that, but let's begin at the beginning for folks who may not know who you are, who may not follow you on Instagram. Tell us just a little bit about your PhD program and what you do.
Yeah. So for those who I have not met, my name is Chiamaka, but I also go by Chi. That is an official nickname. It's not an Americanized nickname. It's not something to make it palatable. It's a real nickname. And I am, I guess, officially a fourth year PhD candidate in the Department of Pharmacology at the University of Michigan. Go Blue. And my project basically focuses on investigating novel methods for developing a gene therapy to treat arrhythmia. So I'm in a cardiac electrophysiology lab, and I am in the middle of collecting data to see if an antibody that we developed can modulate the behavior of this ion channel called hERG in a way that it can exert cardioprotective effects.
So in layman's terms, very simply put, what would be the ideal outcome of your research?
Sure. So ideal outcome, I might not be around to witness it, but would be to bring a novel drug to market as a way to treat arrhythmia. So when your heart is beating irregularly, that can lead to sudden cardiac death. So if this antibody that we're working with, if we could develop that into a drug to prevent that from happening, that is the end game. But at the very least, a new tool for trying to develop new ways to treat arrhythmia by minimizing the side effects.
Bad bitch. So here's why we're here, though, right? You are so active on campus life. I mean, literally, you're sitting right in the middle of campus right now. What are some of the things that you do extracurricularly at University of Michigan in addition to being a PhD candidate?
So I've done a lot. I started at Michigan as a master's student in a bridge to PhD program, and then did a Fulbright, and then came back as a PhD student. So since that time, most of the organizations I've been involved in have been somehow related to either outreach, diversity, equity, inclusion, building community among African students and students of the diaspora on campus. So I've been president of the African Graduate Students Association, which I helped revamp. I've also served as a Rackham professional development leader. So it's basically a group of students who liaise between their departments and the graduate school to identify needs of graduate students and then put on programming to better support them. I was also co-president of Females Excelling More in Math, Engineering, and the Sciences. So basically worked on recruiting girls into STEM between 4th and 6th grade. And I've also been on the executive board of the African Studies Center. And as I'm talking, I'm like, I could go on and on. But every org I've been a part of has been something that resonates with who I am as a person. So African studies, African grad students group, outreach, anything related to STEM, anything that can basically improve students' lives on campus.
Yeah, and I can obviously relate to you because I did quite a bit student life activities, advocacy stuff while I was at Penn. But, there's a lot of people who don't do anything outside of school, right? And I remember many people who were in my program who I talked to didn't see, but they might have hobbies and things that they do totally outside of school. But in terms of campus life, they didn't feel any desire to give back, right? What was the biggest driver? What were some of the factors that drove your decision to be active, to be a participant, to be someone who's making things move?
Yeah, that's a great point. And it's something that I tell junior trainees, like, if there are things you want to apply for, like, get active, network, get to know people, because it's really going to make you a more competitive applicant and give you things to speak to when you're, whatever it is that you're interested in. I would say the number one motivator has just been probably either through my own experiences, feeling like at other institutions or in other situations, I didn't have that support. So I wanted to fill that gap on campus. But equally, I would say Michigan for me, and I have to emphasize that, it's my personal experience, but has been an extremely supportive community. It was one of the few institutions that gave me a chance at grad school. I got rejected from that might have been the only graduate program that accepted me the year that I applied, and had a program specifically that fully funded master's students, which is extremely rare. So I've always, it's insane. And I just have the utmost gratitude to this space, to the people who've helped me. So it's easy for me to give back and want to be involved. There's just a lot of great people here, a lot of dope faculty, a lot of, the whole Rackham grad school staff and admin support is just unreal. So it's easy to want to help and get involved. And it's already something that I like to do naturally.
You're true blue. Were you like this in undergrad?
Absolutely not. No.
Okay.
Undergrad was a struggle. I think I went to undergrad at Georgia Tech in Atlanta, and I think probably all the Georgia Tech gear I have are from other like borrowed hoodies that were never returned. Like my Michigan wardrobe is decked out.
Yes.
No. Undergrad was a struggle. It was rough.
Yeah, no, I still wear so much of my Michigan stuff. I bought one hat from Penn. That was it. I was like, I don't care at all. I still rock my Michigan stuff too. Like it's legit. That's dope. Yeah. You also have a lot of fun outside of school and campus life, right? How the hell do you manage this, ma'am? Like I bet, I know that you are doing work all day probably. Are you doing anything later tonight?
Yeah, probably, but work related.
Okay, work related. But you're probably doing something this week.
Oh yeah. I'll be out this weekend.
Okay, so we gotta get into this. Like, how do you manage to do these things simultaneously?
Yeah, I will say, doing research abroad in Belgium really just reinforced the fact that you do not need to eat, breathe, and sleep your PhD. And it's not efficient and it's not healthy. You know, I I'm an adamant believer that if you can get your work done Monday through Friday, like push for that. My weekends are my weekends, unless there is something that I need to do or that I want to do. So I go ham during the week. Like I'm not people like, oh yeah, come, let's get drinks. I'm like, nope. If it's not Friday evening, Saturday or Sunday. Sunday's like my restorative day. I'm not, you're not catching me doing anything during the week. It's a rarity. And yeah, I would say the balance is, I guess I don't really appreciate what a skill it is, but for me, like going out and having an outlet is how I function. So if I were to, go several months without going out or doing something fun, that's going to take a toll on my mental health, my physical well-being, and that's going to translate to the lab. Like I'll probably get less done. And I'm someone who actually tends to perform better when I have more on my plate. So I think that kind of matches
What is that called? Like, what is that phenomenon called where having more responsibilities makes you stay on top of things more?
I don't know. Am I type A?
There's probably a book about it. Yeah, I don't know. Are you type A though? Because you seem so chill. I don't know. You don't seem type A.
Yeah, I don't know. But it's, it's like the days where I'm like, if I have nothing on my calendar and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, like today's the day I'm just gonna focus all day on this one thing, I don't get it done. But if I have like 20 meetings and like barely any time to eat lunch, it's like those are my most productive days. So I think something about striking that balance and having something outside of school is essential for me to do well. And I would argue probably the same for other people. They just, Americans in particular feel like more hours means more productivity. And that's not true.
Right. That's just not your way of life. Have you ever struggled to balance both? This is super important because, there are ebbs and flows of grad school, and I actually haven't gotten into like where you're at in terms of more work, coursework, etc. But, can you talk to us a little bit about that, or has it been pretty smooth sailing?
Oh no. It's funny. I was just talking to a friend about this, but it's like, yeah, it's definitely a challenge. I think if anything, I am probably the type of person that would lean towards having the balance skewed more socially than academically. So I have to like rope myself in. Like just today, someone was posting in our group chat and they're like, oh, you want to go see this comedian? And I was about to sign up and I was like, actually, Chi, you've been doing a lot. Like you need this, you can't do everything and you need to pick and choose. But it's definitely been a challenge. Like my first semester of grad school, I was taking some really intense pharmacology classes, and I hadn't taken classes like that, in years, basically since college. And I was studying round the clock, weekends too. I still went out, but I started taking a dance class, pole dancing classes, and I was like, okay, I don't care how tired I am, how exhausted I am. Like, I'm going to make these pole classes. It's twice a week for an hour and a half. I was like, that's the minimum that I need to do. And it was hard to make those. Like, I just had to be intentional about it. And it was a struggle. Like some days I would be in bed, like, man, I really don't want to go. But I'm like, I paid for this. Let me get my butt up.
But you were on the phone too. You were like, yeah, I'm in bed.
Yeah.
I'm really not trying to go to this, but I paid for this.
Yeah, look, those classes are not cheap. So
no, they're not. They're not.
It takes a lot of discipline, but I've definitely struggled with it. It's been, some days are better than others. I feel like right now I'm in a space of where I'm like, okay, I really need to ante up and like get a publication out and start thinking about graduating and pulling back from, I wouldn't say pulling back, but maybe giving more time on the weekends to my research. So I've had to, I have to check myself sometimes when I can see how it's impacting my work or like the goals that I set for myself. But it's definitely always a work in progress. I don't think there's ever been a point where I'm like, oh yeah, I got this in the bag, I'm good. No, it's hard.
Well, okay, so we've alluded to the fact that you love to dance. Is that the main social activity that you involve yourself in when you're going out, or is it just everything? I mean, I know you're super well-rounded. I know dancing is a huge part of it, though, and we need to get into that a little bit.
Yeah. Honestly, I would say, yeah, dancing is probably the biggest piece of it because a lot of the things that I do, like going out to parties and stuff, I go to parties with good DJs so I can dance with other dancers who like come in the area. Pole dancing, like if there's an event that I'm going to, I have the most fun when it's an event that I can dance to. And a lot of my close friends love to dance. It's how we became friends, how we connected. So it's just something I've always loved to do, and
you're really good at it.
Thank you.
You're amazing at it. I love watching your dance videos. When you posted that you had like hurt your ankle, I think you said, yeah. I was like, girl, we need to see more dances. So I'm praying that you're like heal soon. But you know what this makes me think about? This is why I'm like smiling like an idiot over here. When I visited you in Brussels and we met out and I met up with you and a friend at a dance club. Chi don't even be drinking like that. I don't even know if you drink. Yeah, not really.
I don't not drink, but I like
right, but it's not. Yeah, that's not the intention. But then we were out, we're having fun, we're dancing. You're like, here, let's come up with a cute little combination. And I don't even remember it, but it was so cute. I posted on my Instagram. I might put it right in here somewhere so people can see. But yes, you stay. And then I, being me, I'm like lame and introverted. I was like, okay, I'm going home at like, I don't even know, 1. I don't know. I was tired. But you told me y'all stayed like all night.
Yeah, it's not even lame. I feel like, everyone has their spectrums of how late they stay out. But yeah, I mean, in Brussels, oh man, that was one of the best years of my life. But we would be out till like 6, 7, dancing the whole time, like sweat, makeup running off our face. Like, and it's funny because sometimes, people will see me and be like, when I say I like to go out to parties or club, I never appreciate that, people have an idea of what that means. Like, oh, like she drinks. Or I'm like, no, I will drink absolutely zero.
Right. Nothing.
I'm on the dance floor from 11 to 7. Like it's a workout.
Getting it. And that brings me to another thing, because you do so often post things on social media about, just going out dancing, the routines that you're practicing. I mean, everything from pole to choreography to doing your hair, showing us your wash and go, right? Mm-hmm. And that's something I so admire about you, because when I first made scholarnoire, I told like a couple of professors that I trusted, but because academia is so rigid, I was and even today my Instagram is not open. Yeah, I was very reluctant to tell people about it because I didn't want outside influences, people in charge to negatively judge me or try to use that against me as someone who was unserious, right? You don't seem to have that problem at all.
Yeah,
so tell me about that, being so public facing.
Yeah, it's I've had friends from a good place like reach out to me and be like, hey, be mindful about what you share and these types of things. And I'm just like, we talk a lot about DEI and representation and being inclusive. And I'm like, this is not a professional space. This is not a professional Instagram account. It's not a professional Twitter account. So I'm not going to censor myself to make people feel comfortable about the lives that they want to live, So my mom told me, like, back in the AOL days, she was like, if you don't want someone to know anything, whether your page is public, private, hidden, deactivated, don't post it, period.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I keep that in the back of my mind all of the
time.
To your point, I did think about, there was one point in time I thought about making like my current page private and then doing like a separate one that was like more academic. And I decided against that because I was like, the beauty of kind of showcasing the things that I do is showing like,
You're multifaceted.
Yeah, like all of the different things that like and it didn't resonate with me. I was like, I don't care about science as much to have a science page. I don't. I love what I do, but like I'm interested in a lot of things. But even though my Insta is private, I've definitely blocked some people who don't follow but snoop and then share my stuff. And I'm like, I don't care if my stuff is public. I'll block you. I won't add you. I won't like.
What do you mean you're sharing your stuff? How do you know?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Like, it'll be, some people like, cause you can see who watches your stories. So it's like, I'll see people who are watching my stories and then hear from a friend that someone was talking about something.
Oh, that they're gossiping.
Like, yeah. And I'm just like, I mean, I know my stuff is out there, but either follow with your chest or get blocked. So, just like, but to answer your question, I think I've been intentional about that because I'm really tired of the what's the word? When people just act like they care about DEI for show.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like I should be able to be my full authentic self, and people need to accept that, embrace that, and understand that being a scientist can look so many different ways. So that's kind of what I feel my page represents, but also I'm just someone who loves
I love that though. Yeah. Being a scientist can look so many ways, and that's why I love your page and I'm obsessed with it. And I so admire you because my parents about AOL, their thing was don't ever put your real name, your birthday, where you live, anything real about you because people can come find you. I took that so seriously that you can't find my page by searching my name. Like I'm always on the fence about like, should I share this? I don't know. And so I've kind of leaned into like just sharing silly stuff for sharing cultural criticism these days a little bit more, maybe sharing some academic stuff, current events, Tokyo Olympics, Black girls stay winning, stuff like that. But you're right though. The authenticity piece is so important, and we need people like you, to be honest, I feel are blazing a trail to show people, even if they don't feel brave enough to do the same thing, that it is okay to have well-rounded like you can dance on a pole and sit in a lab and make breakthroughs.
Exactly. And to your point too, I think what your parents told you is also good advice. I'm like, I'm never running for office for anything. It's too late. Like with advanced Twitter search and all this stuff, like, you know what I mean? It's
have to delete that.
It's important to, I think, just make an intentional decision, and either side is fine. Like I respect people who are like, nope, I'm not touching this subject, or I'm not putting this out there. And unfortunately, the world we live in, like sometimes that information can be weaponized against you. It can be, people will use that to find you or do whatever. So it's just like, it's important to make an informed decision. And I understand both sides of the, the equation. For sure.
Mm-hmm. And you just mentioned, right, that you knew people who were like sneak dissing or just like following you, but not with their whole chest, etc. And then people were like, be careful about what you share. Have you actually experienced any real criticism from like the fears that people might have, right? About like, I don't want a professor or somebody who has some leadership position or admin to say something to me. Have you actually experienced any backlash or anything like that?
Surprisingly, no. For the most part, I've gotten, but I'm also, even though I'm public, contrary to popular belief, I do still keep some things offline. And so I'm aware of like reading my stuff and how they're going to respond. But I would say the majority of it has been people saying like, oh, I love how like bold you are. I love that you say this. I love that you say that. And then, faculty that I'm cool with, they'll be like, yeah, so I saw your Twitter. But it's never anything like negative.
What you tweet? Okay.
Yeah, it's not. No one has come to me to say that I'm doing too much. I'm sure there are people who feel that way, but maybe they see my tweets and they're like, I don't want to say anything because she'll.
What do you be tweeting? Do I need to go on Twitter real quick to see what is on Twitter?
I don't even think I tweet. I mean, I'll rant. I'll rant about classes being hard. I'll rant about racism. I'll rant about the election. I'll rant about, stuff that people may not want to discuss on their academic Twitter, whatever.
Got it.
It's like their Twitter accounts might be just like, oh, here's my paper, here's this, and I'm like, hey y'all, it's brunch. Ooh, pole class today. Like it's just their own preference. But I don't really post anything reckless, but I am very outspoken, but I'm that way in real life too. So,
Where does the boldness come from? Have you always been that way? Or is it something that you've developed as you've grown up?
I think I've always been that way. I always blame it to growing up in Jersey and being a Nigerian woman. I think those two in the same person, it's just how I grew up and how I've always been.
What is growing up in Jersey? How does that make it different than like growing up in Michigan, for example?
Yeah, I think it's something you experience, but East Coasters get a bad rep for being maybe
Blunt, rude.
aggressive, blunt. Yeah. So it's funny because I remember when I moved to Atlanta for college, my friends would be like, Chi, you're like really mean, or like saying it like jokingly. And I'm like, what are y'all talking about? Like, y'all are just soft. Like, I'm just being normal. And it wasn't until I moved out of New Jersey for college, and I hadn't moved back until it was like several years, like at least 4 or 5 years before I stayed home for the summer. And that summer, I was so annoyed with everybody. I was like, is this what I was like when I moved to Atlanta? I was desensitized to it. I mean, even little things like, you say good morning, people will look at you like you're crazy. Like that's just not the culture.
True.
Like you don't have time to like say, hey, how are you doing? We're not holding open doors. Even the difference between being in like Penn Station versus taking the MARTA, I was getting like pushed left and right because I was walking too slowly versus how, So I think it's it's not that we're mean. I think we just have our own culture that's just kind of more blunt, more isolated, more like, yeah.
In your face. Okay, cool. Let's talk about the advice piece. A lot of people in PhD programs, in my humble opinion, are more introverted, maybe awkward, shy, bookish. I think it's changing, to be honest. I think the millennial generation is leading a change in who can be a scientist, who can be an academic, who can be a scholar. But a lot of people, I think, or at least in my experience, a lot of people were just really awkward. Like I did go to social events and I'd always be like, damn, am I the only person who's mostly, sometimes extroverted, because I'm an ambivert. So I can be really introverted, but I can be really extroverted, not going too. Yeah. So what advice do you have for people who want to do more stuff, who want to just even have more hobbies and time and space and intentionality for themselves and not feel guilty and burned out? Do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was telling a mentor the other day that I feel like, the way academia is set up in some spaces, like there's a bias in favor of extroverts, right? It's like, oh, like natural leader, like charismatic, strong network worker, those types of things. And, I feel like as corny and cliche as it sounds, I think the first thing I would say is like, be true to yourself. If having to come out of your shell is costing you any kind of peace or like detrimental to your mental or physical well-being, like don't do it. I just the systems need to adapt to the people and not the other way around. But on the same breath, I would say it's worth practicing. If I prior to actually Fulbright, I was always someone who was like, I don't like networking. I don't like if you put me in a room with VIPs and tell me go talk to this person because they own some company, like I hate it. I'm just like, I don't like to do things that feel inauthentic or something that I wouldn't do naturally. And doing Fulbright, where we had like a lot of events where we were in rooms with strangers, and it's like, go meet people, go introduce yourself. It definitely brought me out of my comfort zone, but the more I did it, the better I got at it. And I would, when I got to Michigan, I started like attending like how to network events or like learning skills, asking people for help in ways that, learning those tools and then trying to kind of merge that with the type of person that I am. I'm like, okay, I can find a way to network that works for me as opposed to like following some like rigid structure. So I would say it's going to be uncomfortable, and push yourself outside of your comfort zone, and you will get better at it. And sometimes you just have to put on a face for certain places and then, recharge and restore in your safe spaces.
I feel like what you're bringing up a good point, right? Which is the fact that we're constantly code switching our identities in and outside of academia, right?
Yes.
Like what you said, the face that you have to put on. That can take a toll. I mean, for me, honestly, a big part of the reason I felt like such an outsider while I was at Penn is I don't navigate spaces where you're supposed to be on and like a machine and inhuman and not joke around and be goofy and talk about pop culture. I don't operate well in those spaces, right? So yeah, I mean, how do you go between those? Does it feel seamless for you? How do you recharge?
Yeah. So I would say I just wasn't willing to accept that. I was like, that's rubbish. Like, if there's a way to get there, I can figure it out. So I just couldn't accept that I had to like change my trajectory or my path entirely just because I made a mistake, or several.
Yeah. Finally, where can folks find you online if they want to see what's going on in the life of the future Dr. Chiamaka?
Yes, I would say the best platform is Twitter. I'm actually, funny enough, I'm taking a 1-month social media break for, to focus on school but also to do a mental health detox and all the stuff that we're funding. Yeah. On Twitter, I'm Ugochi, YOUGOCHI. And on Instagram, I'm the Nigerian Queen.
And indeed, you're the Nigerian Queen. Everyone follow her on Instagram and Twitter. I'll put it on the screen. But thank you so much for doing this. This has been an incredible conversation.
Yes, thank you for having me. I hope it was helpful to anyone else watching, but, always love chatting with you.
Yes, I love chatting with you too. Can't wait to do it again off of here. I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Thanks everybody for tuning in to the video. If you like it, give us a thumbs up. Please leave comments. Chi-Chi is going to see the video. So if you have any questions for her, leave them in the comments. And will you respond?
Yes, of course.
And she'll respond. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you guys soon. All right. Peace. All right.
Yay!
To love. Love is a condition so powerful. It may be that which holds the stars in the firmament.
That's what I feel in my heart.